Basara was an ugly loser who got exiled from the hero clan after he destroyed the village. However, everything changes when he moves in with two demon stepsisters who are being hunted down, but the only way to give them powers is to get freaky with them. At the start, Basara is brought to a restaurant by his dad, Jin, who wants to introduce him to his new adopted sisters, which Jin believes would be good for their family. While waiting for the girls to arrive, Basara goes to take a leak, but when he opens the door, he finds a red-haired busty baddie inside doing her business, and realizes that he's screwed up by not knocking. Desperate, he stops her from screaming, begging her to understand that it's an accident, but she manages to push him away and calls him a creep. Just before she smashes his dingleberries, Jin pops up with his other sister to point out that the red-haired chick is his sister. They all sit down, and the red-haired girl introduces herself as Mio, while the petite girl introduces herself as Maria. When Basara asks about their mom, Jin says she's currently overseas, which feels a bit suspicious. The next morning, Basara wakes up to find Mio on top of him, saying she wants to wake him up by gobbling his glizzy to make him happy and starts bouncing, when he suddenly notices something hard under the blanket. She reaches for it, only to be disappointed when it turns out to be a disc, but before even checking it, she falls, and when Basara looks at it, he realizes it's a forbidden gooning game. Mio takes this as proof that he's a total creep, but he protests and accidentally trips on the sheets, falling onto her. In response, she drives her knee into his baby maker, before leaving him in pain. Afterward, Basara heads downstairs to the kitchen and greets Maria, but is shocked when he sees that she's in nothing but an apron. Wanting to make his meat bologna do a stiffy, she spins around to tease him and shows she's not exactly flat under the apron. She then asks if he saw the game she left for him, and that angers him, realizing she planted the game, which made him look like a degenerate. She even asks if he wants to skip the game and try it with her for real, but before he can answer, Jin walks in and Basara begs his daddy to help him, but Jin simply tells him to shoot outside to avoid making taboo babies. That afternoon, after shopping, Basara leaves Mio for a bit to find his bike, but then, some creeps approach her and offer to run a train on her. She warns them not to touch her, saying she'll end their bloodline, but they just laugh it off. When Basara arrives, he defends Mio and completely handles these pathetic goons using his bike, before quickly escaping with Mio. On the way home, she apologizes for what happened, but Basara assures her that it's okay and promises to protect them as their big brother, to which Mio accepts. Back home, Basara watches Jin pack his gear since he's leaving for a shoot in Dubai right away. After Jin leaves in a cab, Basara goes back inside, where he finds his stepsisters in the living room. When he finds them, he casually asks what they should eat for dinner, but the girls coldly ignore him like he's a worthless insect. He suggests ordering takeout, but Mio flatly tells him to leave the house like she owns the place. When he asks her to repeat that, Maria suddenly attacks and uses a wind spell to pin him to the wall. While he's on the floor, Maria walks up and scolds him for disobeying Mio's words, before revealing her true form as a succubus, saying that in a world of magic and gods, she's a demon. As she shifts into her freaky demon outfit, Basara asks if Mio is also a demon, and Maria declares that Mio is the future demon lord. They tell Basara to go live somewhere else, but he's clearly hurt and asks if Mio was just pretending all the tender moments they spent as a family. Mio stays silent, and Maria is tired of his questions, so she casts a brainwashing spell on him to make him leave them the house to serve as their demonic base camp. However, to their confusion, Basara stays still when ordered to leave, and he suddenly moves past and blitzes behind both of them. Maria tries to blast him dead, but Basara summons a sword and cancels her magic with ease. He then reveals that in a world of gods and demons like her, he is a hero. Mio argues that all heroes are supposed to be in their hidden village, but he refuses to explain anything. He moves in to finish them, but stops at the last second and tells them to get out instead. Back in his room, Basara struggles to control the power in his hands, triggering a painful memory. Once he calms down, he calls his dad and Jin admits he already knew and was just pretending, since he'd been watching the girls before they approached him. He explains that the hero clan has been keeping an eye on Mio, the daughter of the previous demon Lord Wilbert, who was a peaceful person. Because of that, other demons who wanted war took his life, but not before he sent his daughter to the human world, which made her a target. Then, Jin tells Basara to protect the girls since they might be the key to stopping the war between demons and heroes. Meanwhile, Mio and Maria are basically homeless, and Maria suggests finding someone else to brainwash, but Mio tells her to stop manipulating people. Suddenly, they sense a barrier activating, and monsters appear, forcing Mio to use her fire magic. As the creatures overwhelm them, Mio also uses lightning and defeats what seems like the last Ripper demon with electricity. but it reappears behind them and knocks her off a cliff. As she falls, thinking it's the end, Basara sees her and rushes forward, catching her just in time before finishing the demon himself. After everything settles, they ask why he saved them, and he shows them their family photo and says their home will stay together like a real family. Back at home, Maria asks again why he saved them. Basara hands her a glass of juice, and when she drinks it, he's surprised to see her not suspecting any poison, but she assures him that she figured out that it wouldn't make sense for him to poison them after saving them. However, she still questions why someone from the hero clan would show mercy to demons like them. And Basara reveals that it was actually Jin's idea to take them in, since he already knew their situation. Maria then expresses her worry about the hero clan possibly watching them, but Basara explains that he and Jin have had no connection with the hidden village for 5 years. Meanwhile, Mio steps out of the bath, still shaken from what happened earlier. She criticizes herself for being weak and needing Basara to save her. As she sinks deeper into that frustration, Basara knocks on the door and apologizes for how he acted before knowing their situation. Before she can answer, she suddenly loses consciousness and collapses. Basara opens the door to check on her, but she quickly wakes up and smacks his hand away when he tries to help. She scolds him for apologizing when they were the ones who deceived him, but he admits he also hid the fact that he's a hero. He says he doesn't see them as bad demons, knowing that they plan to brainwash him instead of ending him, so innocent lives won't be taken. Even though she's still unsure, Basara tries to ease things by calling them family and promising to protect them. That moment gets interrupted by Maria, who jokes that she's glad to see how close they are whenever she's not around. She also expresses how glad she is to know how strong Basara is, seeing how he managed to block her magic, but he assures her that he's nothing special, and that it was a fluke before walking away. Later that night, Mio looks at a photo of her family, remembering how they were butchered right in front of her. Just then, Maria comes in to check on her, and they talk about whether they should really trust Basara and Jin while pretending to be a family. Maria hands her the new family picture, saying they're lucky to have found allies like them. Suddenly, Maria gets an idea and gathers everyone into a magic circle she prepared, saying that Basara and Mio should form a master-servant pact. Basara questions why it's needed, and Maria explains that it links their souls so they can sense each other, making it easier for him to protect Mio. He argues that something simple like a tracking device would work, but Maria gets complaints until he gives in. She adds that the pact can only happen under a full moon, which is on that day, and after Mio reluctantly agrees, Basara does too. Then, Maria says she'll assist Mio since her magic skills are on the level of a dog poo. And she instructs Basara to kiss the magic seal that appears on Mio's hand, but to their confusion, the seal shows up on his own hand. Mio panics, and Maria realizes that means Mio would take the servant role instead. Maria urges her to finish the pact anyway since it's mainly for tracking, but Mio refuses, saying she won't become Basara's servant. Basara points out that the seal is fading, but before they can fix anything, it disappears, and a collar suddenly forms around Mio's neck, making her weak. When Basara touches her, she reacts like she's about to get the almighty inches, and Maria explains that the curse has activated. She says Mio's refusal triggered it, but it can still be resolved. Revealing herself as a succubus, she explains that because she amplified the pact, Mio is now under a curse with a very sensitive effect of needing to get her cheeks cracked. Seeing Mio struggling, Basara asks what he should do, and Maria tells him he needs to calm her down by stimulating her heightened senses. Out of excitement, Maria says she'll record everything, and she urges him to make her squeal out of pleasure before the pain overwhelms her. With no other choice, Basara begins carefully, touching her arms first, which makes her release happy noises, then moving higher, releasing even more, louder, joyful noises. When that doesn't work, Basara is forced to make her yield and call him her master, all the while he needs the dough for the next hour, until Mio finally settles down. Afterward, while Maria cleans up the love juices, she apologizes for not explaining the curse earlier. She's surprised to see Basara not angry, but he tells her it's not him that she should be worried about, and right on cue, Mio grabs Maria from behind and drags her off after what she put her through. The next day, as they walk to school, Maria says she'll stay around as support nearby. Basara questions whether people will question who she is, but she shows a fake license, assuring them that she'll be okay. Then at school, Mio tells Basara to act normal in class and make sure no one knows they live together, to which he agrees to. He first goes to the faculty room to meet his homeroom teacher, then heads to class to introduce himself. The teacher points out where he should sit and asks the class rep, Yuki, to help Basara settle in. In that moment, Basara notices the class representative looks familiar, and once the teacher leaves, she suddenly hugs him, shocking the entire class. Mio is just as surprised, and Basara takes a closer look before realizing she's his childhood friend, Yuki. Mio cuts in, saying they shouldn't act so close in public, but Yuki says it's normal for them. That only makes Mio more annoyed, and she ends up blurting out that Yuki can't do that because Basara lives with Mio, shocking everyone even more. Because of that, Basara instantly becomes hated by most of the guys in class. When he tries to talk to Mio, who is his only friend, about lunch, she tells him to eat his own glizzy and leave her alone. Just then, a dude named Yahiko approaches him and invites him to have lunch together on the roof. Basara complains that everyone now dislikes him, but Yahiko explains it's even worse, since Mio and Yuki are basically the two hottest babes in school, which every man and their dad wants to taste. So now he's made enemies everywhere. Basara asks why Yahiko is even talking to him if it might get him dragged into trouble, but Yahiko shrugs it off, saying he just thinks Basara seems interesting and wants to see how things turn out, considering he has the two hottest baddies under the power of his almighty glizzy. After school, Basara, Mio, and Maria meet up, but Mio is still clearly upset, so Maria asks what happened. Before they can talk it out, Yuki shows up and asks to speak with Basara alone. They go to a restaurant, where she sits very close to him, and she thanks him for coming and tells him to stay away from Mio from now on. Basara knows why she asks for that, and that is because Mio is an S-rank target being monitored by the village, meaning that Yuki is the one assigned to watch over her. Meanwhile, Mio and Maria are secretly listening in and realize how careless they've been, basically making it easy for the hero clan to track them for months. Mio admits it should have been obvious Yuki was a hero when she mentioned being Basara's childhood friend, but she was too distracted at the time. As she starts worrying that Basara might betray them, the curse suddenly activates, making her feel tingly in all the right places. Not wanting to cream in the middle of the restaurant, Mio runs out of the restaurant, with Maria chasing after her. Outside, Mio asks what she's supposed to do when Basara keeps helping her, and Maria tells her to trust him, even suggesting to help him release his pent-up stress with some methods a succubus knows best. Back inside, Basara tries to convince Yuki that Mio isn't a threat and that's why he's protecting her, even without his old abilities. He brings up the incident from 5 years ago that got him banished from the village, and Yuki says it wasn't his fault, but he still blames himself. But then, he says that unlike him, Mio is different because she's facing her past directly and trying to live as best as she can, which is why he wants to protect her. When they step outside, Yuki admits she's uncomfortable with him living with someone like Mio, considering the danger that follows her. She says Mio is too weak to defend herself from the demons chasing her, but Basara insists he'll protect her without involving the clan. As he walks away, Yuki suddenly draws her sword and attacks a demon that appears behind him. She explains that Mio's natural power is attracting stray demons into the human world, meaning it's only a matter of time before she's ordered to eliminate her. She warns that she won't hesitate, even if it makes Basara her enemy. Back home, Basara explains everything to Mio and Maria, but they're more focused on why he spent so much time with Yuki. Maria jokes that they thought he was cracking her on the side, which would make them trust him less, so Basara ends up apologizing. To strengthen their relationship, Maria sets up that they all bathe together, saying it'll help them get comfortable around each other, even though Basara is against it. She talks about washing each other's backs, and Mio ends up going first, telling herself that she won't lose to Yuki. While doing so, she notices scars on Basara's back, but continues cleaning it. Just then, Maria tells her to move on the next step, and Mio uses her pepperonis to clean his back, all the while making happy noises due to the sensation. Basara tries to stop her freakiness by talking about the cake he brought for them, but Maria is already ahead of him and brings in cake into the bathroom. During the chaos, the cake ends up on his veiny arms, and the girls clean it off of him in a way that makes him wish it's some other veiny thing he possesses. Having had enough of their degenerate actions, Basara decides to turn the tides, and with his dominant stature, masculine arms, and towering strength, he completely dominates both girls until they both yield. But then, he suddenly wakes up next to Maria, who tells him that the latter part of what he did was just a dream. And she is pleasantly surprised to know that he's capable of having such dreams involving all three of them, leaving Basara flustered and begging for forgiveness. He then asks about Mio, and when Maria says that she's asleep, he asks to discuss something with Maria privately. Some days later, Mio can't take her eyes off Basara, still reminded about what he told Yuki, and how he said he wanted to protect Mio. Just then, Yahiko tells Yuki that their homeroom teacher wants both her and Basara to help organize summer assignments. Basara asks Mio to wait for him afterward, and she agrees, but Yuki tells him to just go since she can handle things herself. He insists on following the teacher's request, which makes Mio imagine them together and triggers her bond with Basara in public, causing her to collapse. He takes her to the clinic, where he meets the hot school nurse, Chisato, who expresses how she finally gets to meet the school's most popular guy for bagging the two hottest baddies, which Basara insists is a misunderstanding. She warns him that he needs to consider who his friends and enemies are before walking away, leaving him with the key. Seeing Mio still suffering, Basara considers calling Maria to help, but Mio grabs his arm and asks him to stay. He calls Yahiko instead to cover for him with Yuki, and Yahiko agrees. As Mio starts feeling better, Basara asks what kind of thoughts triggered her condition, but she denies anything like that. Later, Basara finds Yahiko still at school and thanks him for helping out with Yuki, but Yahiko says that he hasn't seen Yuki, and that she said she wanted to visit him and Mio. Suddenly, the lights go out, and Basara notices stray demons entering the building. He quickly knocks Yahiko out for safety, then summons his sword and takes care of the demons. At the same time, Yuki confronts Mio, saying that they need to talk. They head to the rooftop, and Yuki confronts Mio and reveals her identity as a hero. She tells Mio to stay away from Basara, but Mio refuses, saying she won't leave her family behind. Hearing that, Yuki says she has no other choice, and she attacks, but Mio blocks with a magic barrier and fires back with wind magic. The fight escalates as they trade stronger attacks, but being the stronger fighter, Yuki breaks through Mio's defenses. She reveals that Basara can't fight like he used to, and that using his sword still brings him pain because of the past incident where he accidentally hurt his own allies and get exiled by his own village. Meanwhile, Basara is searching for Mio, worried that Yuki might go too far. He remembers the magic link between them and uses it to track her location. With that, he arrives just in time before Yuki finishes Mio, and he scolds both of them for breaking their promise of a truce. Just then, a masked figure named Lars pops up, calling out Basara for playing hero and lying to Mio. The stranger reveals the truth that Basara and Maria have been secretly dealing with stray demons every night until morning for Mio, so she won't become a target. Basara tries to stop him from saying too much, but gets knocked back easily. Mio demands answers, and the masked man explains that they've been protecting her from the demons drawn to her power, so the hero clan wouldn't mark her for elimination. Hearing this, Mio feels guilty, but the masked man makes it worse by saying that it's all her fault and that she should give up her powers. He then summons a demon behind Mio, and Basara draws his sword to protect her, but the memory of his past trauma stops him from striking. Instead, he steps in front of her and takes the hit himself, acting as her shield, which ends with him turned into Swiss cheese. As Basara is stepping on death's door, Lars mocks him for being pathetically weak despite being from the hero clan. An enraged Yuki destroys the demon and rushes at Lars, but he easily dodges all her attacks and tells her to worry about Basara instead, saying that he will meet Michael Jackson by the time Yuki is finished with Lars. He also warns Mio that staying in the human world will only keep putting others in danger, and if she doesn't leave, Lars can choose to end everything in an instant. Then he leaves through a portal. They manage to bring Basara home and save him, but Mio can't stop thinking about what Lars said, so she steps out to clear her head. When Basara wakes up, Maria apologizes for not arriving sooner and expresses her amazement with how fast he's recovering. Basara tells her how a hero like him was trained intensely since he was a little jit, and recalls the past when in the middle of training, his village was attacked, resulting in people's deaths. As the attacker was about to end Yuki, Basara stepped in and unleashed his powers, saving her, but was traumatized in the end. Basara then asks about Mio, and Maria assumes she's resting, but when they check her room, they find that she's gone. Maria blames herself for this, but Basara insists on going after her, and they use his tracking ability to find her. Meanwhile, in the forest, Mio releases her demonic aura to lure Lars, planning to settle things herself. When the dude shows up, she challenges him and immediately attacks with a storm of flames, following up with more attacks that quickly drain her energy. When he walks out unharmed, she tries again, summoning another fire attack, but he warns her that if she keeps going, he'll burn down Basara's house. Hearing that, she gives up and chooses to surrender to protect him. So Lars binds her and opens a portal to the demon world, but right then, Yuki appears. Yuki transforms into her combat form and attacks Lars, vowing to avenge Basara. However, all her strikes are blocked by a barrier. She switches tactics and launches a stronger attack, forcing Lars to dodge by jumping to higher ground. He counters with powerful spells that she barely avoids, but as the fight continues, she starts to wear out. Just as Lars summons a massive attack to finish her, Basara suddenly appears and cuts through it with his sword. Using his technique, he tears apart the attack and sends it away, then charges at Lars with a series of strikes. And seeing this, Lars finally acknowledges him as a real threat. When Lars counters with multiple attacks, Basara uses the moment to create an opening and lands a hit, though Lars survives thanks to his barrier. Realizing Basara's limits, Lars switches to close combat, but Maria suddenly arrives and knocks him away. This gives Basara the chance to land several more hits before Lars disappears. After things settle, Maria breaks down in tears, which distracts Basara long enough for another demon to stab him from behind. Seeing this pushes Mio over the edge, and her powers spiral out of control, lifting everything around her with intense force. Basara tries to calm her, but she says she's barely holding it together. She begs him to stop her before she destroys everything, but he refuses. Instead, he tells her that family sticks together and won't abandon each other. For her sake, he draws his sword and focuses on suppressing only her power. With effort, he manages to do it, saving her in the process. The next day, after the battle, Yuki visits their house and asks to see Basara, but Maria says he's still resting after pushing himself too far. With that, Yuki leaves some medicine and heads off, even though she's invited to stay. As she walks away, she realizes Basara is finally gaining control over his abilities, meaning he might be ready to face his past. A few days later, Basara returns to school, feeling better thanks to the medicine. He goes to the rooftop to check on Yahiko, asking if he's okay. Yahiko thinks he's talking about a recent incident at school, but Basara mentions something else that hints of a previous meeting between them. Yahiko tries to brush it off, but when Basara suddenly attacks, he dodges it and reveals his true identity to be the masked man himself, Lars. They prepare to fight, but Basara suggests making a deal instead. He explains that since Lars is supposed to monitor Mio, it would cause problems if his superiors found out he failed. He proposes that they both act as if nothing had happened, so no stronger enemies are sent after her. When Lars questions why he should trust him, Basara claims he could have won their last fight if he had gone all out, and Lars decides to go along with it for now, since it works in his favor. Before leaving, Basara asks about the demon responsible for slaughtering Mio's foster parent, and Lars reveals the name Zulja to him, a demon who watched over Mio beforehand but chose to go on a rampage. After Lars leaves, Mio shows up and thanks Basara for saving her. As thanks, Mio leans in to kiss him, but before anything happens, Yuki pulls him back, warning him not to fall for it. She hands him a lunchbox to win him over, and when Maria arrives, she turns the situation into a rivalry, saying Mio has to win if she wants his attention. As they argue, Mio's curse activates again, and Maria starts suggesting using the thick glizzy in Mio's bento to make Mio open both her lips wide to take it deep. Basara tries to reject, but Maria brings up the bathroom cake play they had some nights before, which catches Yuki's attention. When asked, Maria reveals the master and slave pact between Basara and Mio, and she refuses it outright, refusing to let Basara be anyone else's but hers. Meanwhile, Jin is busy working on something in secret, and he tells someone mysterious on the phone to keep an eye on Basara and the others. The next day, Basara wakes up to find Maria under his clothing, pressing her petite pepperonis onto him to wake him and his fat Johnny up. He complains, and Maria asks him to beg nicely and crack her if he wants her to leave, but Basara refuses to let this slide and smacks her on the head to stop her tomfoolery. He then heads to the bathroom, where unfortunately, Mio is already inside, and just as she's about to scream, he covers her mouth out of instinct, but slips on the wet floor. They both fall into the position your parents start with while making you, and she immediately yeets him away. She starts scolding him, but he argues that she didn't put up the bathroom sign. Mio doesn't believe him at first, but when he explains properly, it becomes clear someone else must have moved it. They laugh as it reminds them of their first meeting, but Mio refuses to let it go and zaps him with lightning. Later, while he's showering, Yuki suddenly shows up and asks to bathe together. Basara gets uncomfortable, not wanting her to see his dingler-danglers, but she insists on staying, saying it's only fair since Mio already had her turn. She ends up forcing the situation while casually helping him wash up. Meanwhile, Mio comes to the door to apologize for overreacting earlier, but her explanation only makes things worse when Yuki hears how Basara put her in a prime position to gobble his glizzy. Then, Mio notices a girl's school uniform nearby and questions it. Basara panics and tries to come up with an excuse, but she walks in out of suspicion and catches them. Before things escalate, her curse activates again for think bad thoughts about her master. Sensing the degeneracy incoming, Maria appears with a camera, but Basara quickly locks her in the shower and takes Mio to her room. Later that day, Basara takes Yahiko out for lunch at a fancy restaurant, saying he's just returning a favor. As they eat, Yahiko asks if he's really Jin's son, and when Basara questions if his dad is well known in the demon world, Yahiko explains that Jin is so strong that even the previous demon lord avoided fighting him. He also mentions that more demons will be sent to observe Mio, especially if she's close to awakening her full power, meaning their current truce might not last. He warns that the next ones could be much stronger, and suggests that Basara make full use of his pact with Mio, since it can strengthen both of them. While they're talking, the baddie of a school nurse, Chisato, pops up and asks to join them. They agree, and she explains she left her seat earlier because someone was bothering her and asking her to taste their meat in turns. They're glad she managed to get away from that, and they all have dinner together. After the meal, Basara walks home with her, and she casually mentions overhearing their talk about demons, magic, and busty sisters. He brushes it off as a conversation about a game, but she doesn't seem fully convinced. As they walk, she suddenly hugs him, catching him off guard, and it makes him open up about how he wants to protect his sisters. She listens, gives him some advice, and kisses his forehead before quietly giving him a good luck charm that she learned from her village. A few days later, Lars meets up with his fellow demon, a powerful figure named Valga. The beast wants to go after Mio immediately, but Lars warns him that the hero clan is also moving, so they need to be careful. Even so, Valga leaves anyway. Not long after, another demon, a bustier one, appears, named Zest, a subordinate of Zulja. She makes it clear she's not there to assist Lars but has her own mission that requires his cooperation, which he is forced to accept. That night, Basara asks Maria about the truth behind the pact with Mio. She admits it's meant to ensure the demon lord's power doesn't fall into the wrong hands and allows them to track Mio at all times. Realizing how important it is, Basara decides not to remove it during the next full moon. Maria then tries to help them build trust in her own strange way, dragging Basara into playing a dating simulation game where the older brother has to crack the cheeks of his fit sister, busty mother, and saggy granny. Even though he pretends not to care, he ends up sitting through seeing his own, while Maria explains how it's useful for their bonding and relationship. However, Mio walks in when Maria is about to do some Alabama plotting, and Mio drags Maria away for punishment. At the same time, in town, a demon nearly attacks a woman, but is stopped by a group of heroes. They reveal that the village has now upgraded Mio's status from being an object to observe to a threat to eliminate. The next day at school, a group of delinquents confronts Basara for bagging both Mui and Yuki with his filthy fat Glizzy. But before they can start anything, a teacher interrupts and sends them away. Right after, Yuki shows up and admits she called the teacher to help him. She then asks if he has any plans for the weekend, and when he says no, she invites him out on a date. Meanwhile, the group of heroes watches over Yuki's invitation and declares that they have to eliminate the future demon lord. Some days later, Basara and Yuki go on their promised date at a mall, with Basara being impressed by how massive the place is. When they reach the clothing store, a saleswoman greets them and starts offering them clothes with more enthusiasm than an OnlyFans girl offering their $2 memberships. During it, Basara can feel someone watching them, but brushes it off to keep the spirit of the date light. Suddenly, Mio and Maria show up, and Mio claims that she and Maria were just shopping and happened to run into them, and definitely were not tailing them. Maria immediately calls her out, saying no one would believe such an obvious excuse, but Basara is glad they popped up, as they didn't know how to handle the saleswoman. Meanwhile, Yuki approaches Mio, and instead of lashing out, she asks Mio to help her pick clothes for her. Mio agrees, and the two of them begin going through clothes together while Basara watches from a distance, relieved to see them getting along well. But after a few minutes, Mio realizes she's basically helping Yuki to look hot enough for Basara to crack, which annoys her. She starts to question it, but before Yuki can explain anything, a fellow hero, Kurume, suddenly pops up and pulls Yuki away without warning. Not knowing where she's gone, Basara and the others rush outside and try calling Yuki, but she doesn't answer. Basara grows uneasy, even thinking that if he had formed a pact with her, he could track her location right now. As that thought lingers, a barrier suddenly forms around them, followed by a sharp wind attack. Basara reacts quickly and helps Mio and Maria dodge it. Then a demon named Valga appears, and he immediately mocks Mio, calling her weak and unworthy of the demon lord's power, saying she's wasting it just to be Basara's gooning lapdog. Basara assumes Valga is behind Yuki's disappearance, and when Valga doesn't deny it, Basara charges at Valga without hesitation, but his attack is blocked effortlessly. Valga counters with a powerful strike that Basara barely avoids, yet the force alone sends him flying back. Valga presses the attack, moving in aggressively. Mio steps forward and launches flames to slow him down, while Maria follows up with a solid punch. Valga barely reacts and knocks Maria away with ease. Basara catches her, but they're forced to keep moving as Valga continues attacking relentlessly. Then, Valga fires a stronger attack directly at Mio, but Basara steps in and deflects it with his sword. That moment catches Valga's interest, and he starts to take Basara more seriously. The fight intensifies quickly, but before it can go any further, something interrupts it. Valga is suddenly frozen from behind and shattered by Takashi, a hero. Shiba appears soon after, calmly stating that they've been ordered to eliminate Mio. Takashi criticizes Basara for siding with a demon, while Kurume attacks him, calling him a traitor and revealing that Yuki is now in their custody. They make it clear that Basara is no longer considered an ally, and that they won't hesitate to treat him as an enemy if he interferes. Even with that warning, Basara stands his ground, holding his sword and preparing to fight. Kurume gets ready to strike again, but before things escalate, Shiba steps in and destroys the barrier surrounding them like it's nothing. He tells everyone to stop, pointing out that fighting in the city would cause unnecessary damage. Instead, he suggests setting up a proper battlefield in a week where both sides can settle things. That night, Basara tells Jin everything that happened, and Jin warns him about Shiba, describing him as the equivalent of a human honey badger, someone the hero village had kept locked away until recently. He also tells Basara not to hold back, even if it means fighting Yuki. When Basara questions why he's encouraging him to go against the village, Jin simply says it doesn't matter anymore since they've already been cast out. Over the next few days, Basara, Mio, and Maria focus on preparing for the upcoming battle. Maria works on improving her combat skills, while Basara helps Mio build control over her abilities. During one of their breaks, Basara explains Takashi's weapon, an ice spear called Byako, which houses a powerful spirit. Mio starts to feel overwhelmed, thinking they might not stand a chance, but Basara reassures her that they still have a shot if they plan carefully. He explains that Byako represents the West, meaning its abilities have directional limits that they can take advantage of. He also explains Kurume's abilities as a spirit summoner, noting that she can keep fighting without using her own energy. However, due to Byako's presence, she'll likely be limited to using wind spirits, which gives them at least some idea of what to expect. Elsewhere, Kurume confronts Yuki, questioning why she's becoming attached to Mio. She reminds Yuki of how hard she worked to earn recognition in the village and asks why she's risking it all for someone considered a target. At the same time, Takashi prepares for the battle, still holding on to resentment toward Basara over the past incident that led to their comrades being lost. Later that night, Maria brings Basara tea while hinting that strengthening his connection with Mio could make him stronger. Basara refuses, saying he wants to build trust with Mio properly instead of forcing the plot to progress. Maria teases him, suggesting other ways he could gain power, but before things go any further, Mio walks in. Maria tries to provoke her, but Mio keeps her emotions in check and says she's willing to do whatever it takes to get stronger so Basara won't have to hold back. They move on from the moment and continue focusing on their preparation. The next day at school, Basara meets Yadiko on the rooftop, who is already aware of the upcoming battle, even though Basara hasn't explained everything. When Basara mentions that the heroes will decide the location, Yadiko warns him that if Mio's life is truly at risk, he might step in himself, even if it means going against Yuki. Before leaving, he tells Basara to make sure he wins so it doesn't come to that, and Basara shoots back a warning for him to be ready for what might happen if he does interfere. Later, Yuki approaches Basara at school and tells him to withdraw from the fight to avoid the village's punishment. Basara refuses, promising that he will protect Mio no matter what. Seeing that he won't change his mind, Yuki finally reveals the location of the battle. As she turns to leave, Basara stops her and gives her a spare key to his house. He tells her that this fight won't be the last time they see each other, and Yuki doesn't respond, but the moment leaves a bitter taste in her heart, who longs for him. That evening, both sides arrive at the chosen location, and after everything that happened, the battle they've all been preparing for is finally about to begin. To start, Takashi plants his spear into the ground, and a massive magical barrier spreads across the entire area, sealing everyone inside. At the same time, Shiba disappears, leaving the battlefield to them. When Basara asks why he sent Shiba away, Takashi explains that he doesn't want him interfering. Takashi makes the first move, slicing through a nearby street lamp before clashing blades with Basara. Mio and Maria immediately jump in to support Basara, firing off magic attacks toward Takashi as he charges at them. At the same time, Kurume targets Basara with a powerful tornado, sending him flying across the battlefield. Before he can land, she lifts herself into the air with her wind powers and follows him, continuing her attack while scolding him for going after her sister. However, Basara quickly realizes that her attacks are directing him toward a specific spot. Instead of resisting, he spins his body to break apart the wind pressure, revealing that he's intentionally letting her move him. Right then, Kurume figures out that his plan is to pull her away from Yuki to isolate her in a one-on-one fight. Elsewhere, Shiba watches from a distance, noticing that Maria and Mio are retreating, drawing Takashi away from Basara. They lead him into a darker area, eventually cornering him inside a room filled with debris. Without hesitation, they begin attacking him together, throwing everything they can to overwhelm him. Takashi cuts through the objects they launch at him, destroying them with ease. When he tries to counterattack, Maria steps in and blocks his strike, confidently stating that she's gotten stronger through recent training. Takashi decides to stop holding back, and his spear begins glowing with a green light as he activates the power of Byakko. The sudden surge of energy blasts Maria through a wall, showing just how dangerous the weapon is even at close range. Mio quickly responds by casting a spell that floods the entire room, filling it with water in an attempt to limit his movement. Meanwhile, Basara continues retreating from Kurume until he reaches the spot he intended. He suddenly turns and attacks her, but his strike is blocked by the wind barrier surrounding her. Kurume notices that he's holding back slightly and takes it as an insult, responding by blasting him through a wall with a stronger attack. She confronts him directly, questioning his determination and calling his ideals pointless, but Basara stands firm, declaring that he will protect his baby mama sisters no matter what. When she launches another attack, Basara activates his banishing shift ability. The technique absorbs not only her wind attack but also her connection to the spirits, disrupting her power. He follows up with a strong strike that sends her crashing down. As she falls, Kurume reflects on her situation, realizing she never wanted things to reach this point between them and Basara. Before she hits the ground, Basara rushes forward and catches her, saving her from becoming a pleb. For a brief moment, that act of kindness catches her off guard, but it is interrupted by Yuki, who steps in. Kurume tries to warn Basara, but he doesn't move in time, and Yuki strikes him with the handle of her sword, knocking him down. Though Kurume is worried, Yuki calmly gives Basara a potion that puts him to sleep, explaining that it's the safest way to remove him from the fight temporarily. Back in the flooded room, Mio thanks Maria for helping her gain the upper hand, but their advantage doesn't last. Takashi releases another burst of power, dispersing the water with Byakko's energy. He then launches a powerful attack meant to finish them both, but they manage to escape at the last moment, surprising him. As they try to regroup, he chases after them, cutting through Mio's flames without slowing down. Just as he's about to land a decisive blow, Yuki appears again and blocks him with a blast of her own energy. Takashi warns her that siding with Mio will make her a traitor and tries to shake her resolve by bringing up the past incident involving Basara. However, Yuki stands firm, saying she's trying to prevent history from repeating itself and that protecting her friends is part of her duty as a hero. As they begin fighting, Mio attempts to join in, but Maria stops her, reminding her that their priority is finding Basara. Mio locates him resting nearby, still under the effects of the potion, with Kurume watching over him. As he sleeps, Basara starts crying over his guilt of the past, and Kurume notices this and realizes how much he's been carrying. When Mio arrives, Kurume stands up to face her, ready to continue the fight, but Mio ignores her and focuses on waking Basara. Kurume explains that he's been given a strong sleeping drug, but Mio keeps calling out to him. Eventually, her voice reaches him, and he wakes up from his nightmare. At the same time, Takashi intensifies his assault against Yuki, overwhelming her with repeated attacks. Maria tries to step in but gets knocked aside. Yuki struggles to keep up, even as she remembers what happened to Basara in the past and how unfairly he was treated. Still, her determination alone isn't enough to stop Takashi, and he knocks her down again. Just as he prepares to finish her, Basara arrives, blocks the attack, and scolds Takashi for going this far against someone they both once knew. When Basara lowers his guard slightly, Takashi immediately attacks again, thinking he's found an opening. However, Basara dodges every strike with ease this time. Their clash continues, with Basara striking rapidly while Takashi defends. Eventually, Byakko's automatic defense activates, reacting to the danger it senses, releasing a massive burst of energy that sends both of them flying. From afar, Shiba watches with interest, noting that Takashi isn't ready to handle Byaku's power. Soon the spirit itself manifests in the form of a massive tiger-like guardian. Basara quickly identifies it as a guardian spirit that won't attack unless provoked. However, Kurume points out that the barrier itself is linked to Byaku's power, meaning it could collapse if the situation gets worse. Basara sees that if they can draw out the spirit's attack, they might be able to break both it and the barrier at the same time. Yuki agrees to help, stepping forward with her sword, Sakuya. She attacks the spirit, pulling its attention toward her, creating an opening. Basara seizes that moment and uses Banishing Shift, successfully erasing the spirit from existence. Afterward, Takashi continues arguing that Basara has gone too far by siding with demons. However, Mio is fed up and slaps him, venting her frustration and pointing out that she's been struggling too. At that moment, Shiba returns and announces that the mission is being withdrawn for now, as eliminating Mio at this point could disrupt larger balances involving gods and spirits. Takashi protests, but Shiba shuts him down immediately with a warning. As they prepare to leave, Basara tries to stop Yuki, but Shiba's presence alone forces him to step back. Before going, Shiba warns that if they don't return to the village by the next day, things will only get worse. Yuki quietly says goodbye to Basara before following him, leaving the battlefield behind. A few days later at school, both Basara and Mio find themselves staring at Yuki's empty seat during class. The silence around it feels heavier than expected, especially after everything that happened. Mio's friends quickly notice her distracted expression and interrupt her thoughts, asking why she looks so down just because Yuki hasn't shown up for a while. They even ask if someone is bothering her and offer to help, but Mio simply forces a smile and thanks them, brushing it off without explaining anything. After school, Basara and Mio walk home together. As they pass by the site where the previous battle took place, the memories hit them again, and the reminder of Yuki lingers in the air. When they finally get home, Basara heads straight to the fridge, but instead of a quiet kitchen, he finds Yuki there, casually cooking like nothing happened. Surprised, he asks why she isn't back in the village. Yuki explains that the elders have downgraded Mio's status, placing her back under observation instead of immediate elimination. Basara then asks if the village has forgiven him, and Yuki reveals that their decision was influenced by a call from Jin, which worries Basara, making him think his father might have made some kind of deal behind the scenes to protect him. Overcome with emotion, Basara suddenly hugs Yuki tightly. She responds by holding his face, clearly about to kiss him, but before anything happens, Mio walks in and stops any trade of love juices. Seeing them like that instantly irritates her, but Yuki doesn't back down either. She pulls Basara closer and tells Mio to leave, saying they were about to paint the whole house white with Basara's cream shooter. That only makes Mio even angrier, and she fires back, saying Yuki doesn't even belong in their house. Maria then enters and casually explains that she was the one who let Yuki in, thinking it was the right thing to do since everyone had been worried about her. Yuki adds that she has official permission to stay with them, which surprises everyone. She explains that observing Mio directly while living together is more effective. Not long after, Maria announces that she has prepared a show to welcome Yuki properly. Everyone gathers in the living room, only for Maria to play a video clip of Basara and Mio during one of their Freaky Friday sessions involving goon and sauces. Mio immediately panics and shuts it off, completely embarrassed. Basara demands to know when she even recorded that, and Maria casually says it's normal to record goon-worthy masterpieces. Mio warns her not to upload it anywhere and even grabs her to make sure she understands that she doesn't want to be the new Kim K. Meanwhile, Yuki suddenly starts taking off her shirt and moves closer to Basara, clearly trying to compete. Maria gets excited and is about to grab her camera again, but Mio stops her instantly. Even when Basara tries to calm things down, Maria keeps making suggestions that he should just let loose and crack both girls' love flowers. After calming down, they explain Mio's condition, and Yuki already seems to know about the pact's functions, including tracking and power enhancement. Then Maria casually suggests that Yuki should form a pact too, but Yuki doesn't hesitate and agrees immediately. The next day at school, Basara becomes the center of attention, seeing that both Mio and Yuki are beside him. The situation only gets worse when the two girls start competing for his attention, like they want to take first turn on a ride on his glizzy. All the while Maria watches, pleased by it. Suddenly, Maria hears a strange voice telling her to meet behind the school, and she quietly agrees. Later, while changing, Yuki can't help but compare herself to Mio in the weapons department, while recalling how Maria told her that size is not important. Mio notices her expression, but Yuki simply brushes it off and says she's looking forward to the pact ritual before leaving. Back in class, Basara changes clothes when Yadiko notices the scars on his body and asks about them. Basara shrugs it off, saying some things don't need to be healed. He then notices Maria wandering around the school suspiciously and asks Yadiko to cover for him before leaving to find her. Maria ends up in his classroom and is about to mess with his desk when Basara catches her and stops her. She claims she was just thinking of setting up a spell that will make any woman cream when near his desk. She then suggests checking on Mio, saying she might be in danger, and drags Basara with her. They head toward the girls' restroom, where Maria insists he should inspect the area. Suddenly, she senses something unusual, and they rush to the rooftop, only to find a couple minding their own business. Annoyed, Maria drags Basara away again, who is annoyed by the anticlimactic conflict. Next, she convinces him to check the girls' changing room. Once inside, she finds Mio's locker and starts screwing around, even placing Mio's peach cover on his head. Suddenly, they hear students returning, and Maria pushes Basara into the locker to hide with her. Inside the cramped space, Basara complains, but Maria ignores him. Mio eventually opens the locker, and is completely shocked to find both of them inside. She quickly shuts it again and sends her friends away before dealing with them. She gives them a short countdown to get out, and they rush out and apologize, but things only get worse when Basara mentions Yuki and how he wants to apologize to her. Mio gets angry again, and her curse activates. As she collapses, Basara tries to help, but Maria encourages him to act quickly. They move Mio to the bathroom, where he helps calm her condition again, using the tongue twister 5000. Later, after school ends, Yuki meets up with Basara and Mio while they look for Maria. When she asks why Maria was at school, they awkwardly avoid the question. Basara then asks Yuki to take Mio home while he searches for Maria, and she agrees. While looking around, Basara spots Maria talking to Yahiko and rushes over, only to lose track of them. Eventually, he finds Maria again, and she casually claims she was just asking for directions. Then, as they walk home together, Maria suddenly asks him to hold her hand, and without thinking too much about it, he agrees. Meanwhile, in the demon realm, Zest shows Zulja footage of Mio's recent life, including her time with Basara. Zulja notices Basara's unusual ability and becomes interested, especially when he sees him erase magic. Seeing potential in this, he decides it's time to move their plans forward and orders Zest to begin the next phase immediately. That night, Maria shows up fully dressed in her succubus outfit, excited for Basara and Yuki's master-servant pact ritual. Basara quickly notices Yuki's outfit and asks why she's wearing something so hot and spicy. Yuki admits without hesitation that she asked Maria to make it for her, as she didn't want to lose to Mio in any way, so she decided to go all out. Basara tries his best to stay calm and avoid looking too much, turning his eyes away to prevent himself from turning into Spritty Magoo. However, Yuki immediately calls him out and threatens to make him cream if he keeps avoiding her. Left with no choice, he gives in and looks at her properly. The ritual begins as a magic circle forms around both of them. At the same time, a smaller seal appears on Basara's hand, and he tells Yuki to complete the process by kissing it, but she refuses. Instead, she claims she won't go through with a normal master-servant pact like that. Rather than following the standard method, she expects Basara to handle it the freaky way he did with Mio before. As the magic circle starts fading due to the delay, Yuki begins losing control of the situation, forcing Basara to step in and help stabilize the ritual. Basara does what he can to keep the process from failing, carefully pressing the right buttons while Maria watches and encourages him to push further. He continues until the magic circle around them begins to glow more intensely, signaling that the pact is finally taking effect and strengthening both of them. However, Maria insists they're not done yet, and she suggests that Basara should take both Yuki and Mio both to the bathroom to continue strengthening their connection there by progressing the plot. She also casually adds that since both girls are now linked to Basara, Mio should start calling Yuki by her first name. Surprisingly, neither of them argues much, and they go along with the idea. While all of this is happening, Zest observes everything from a distance, and watching them interact like that makes her sick. She can't help but compare her situation, feeling frustrated that she serves someone completely different and can't experience something magical like that. The next day at school, Mio and Yuki are playing volleyball together, showing surprising teamwork while Basara watches from the side, impressed by how well they get along. At one point, a stray ball almost hits him, but Yadiko steps in just in time to stop it. Later, Basara visits the nurse's office, where Chisato treats his injured fingers. While patching him up, she points out that he hasn't really had time to relax lately. She advises him not to put too much pressure on himself and to think ahead instead of constantly worrying about what might go wrong. She tells him that if he wants to protect the people important to him, he needs to stay calm and prepared. Before he leaves, she reminds him not to remove the bandages until she says so. Afterward, one of his classmates, Sakaki, approaches him and asks directly whether he's dating Mio or Yuki, especially since he's living with both of them. Basara denies it, but Sakaki doesn't seem convinced. Instead, she starts teasing him, hinting that she knows more about his situation than she should. She then invites him to spend some private time training with her, clearly wanting to take his up her throat, but before anything can happen, Yuki suddenly appears with Mio and immediately attacks Sakaki, but Sakaki easily avoids her attack, confirming Yuki's suspicion that she's not just a normal classmate. Yuki tells Basara to focus on helping Mio, whose condition is acting up again, while she deals with Sakaki. The situation escalates when Sakaki is joined by her partner, Aikawa, turning it into a 2-on-1 fight against Yuki. Even so, Yuki doesn't hesitate to continue fighting. Meanwhile, Mio runs off, overwhelmed by her emotions after what she saw earlier. Her thoughts spiral as she struggles with everything going on. She eventually reaches a quiet area where Maria appears and tries to calm her down. Suddenly, Mio collapses. A spell takes effect, and Zest appears, revealing that she's behind it. Basara rushes toward them as soon as he senses something is wrong, but before he can reach Mio, both she and Zest disappear. Basara tries to use the connection from the pact to locate her, but he quickly realizes something is off, and that he can only sense Yuki, not Mio. Elsewhere, Mio regains awareness in a dreamlike state. She relives memories of her time with her foster parents, seeing how peaceful things once were before everything changed. The memory turns dark as Zulja appears and destroys everything, leaving her helpless as she watches it happen. After that, she remembers meeting Maria, who revealed the truth about her origins and promised to protect her. Mia wakes up from the memory and finds herself restrained. Zest appears in front of her, clearly satisfied that her plan worked. Mio accuses her of serving the current demon lord, Leohard, but another voice interrupts. Zulja reveals himself, making it clear that his goals go beyond just power. Hearing his voice triggers Mio's anger, and she demands answers about what he did in the past. Instead of giving her a clear response, he provokes her further, enjoying her reaction. Before things escalate too far, Maria interrupts, informing him of an urgent message. A communication from Leohard appears through a magical device. Zulja quickly hides the situation, making excuses about interference and denying any involvement in Mio's disappearance. Leohard orders him to return immediately for another mission, leaving him no choice but to comply. Before leaving, Zulja makes it clear that he plans to deal with Mio later. Back at school, Basara confronts Yahiko and asks about Mio's whereabouts. Yahiko reveals the truth that Maria has been acting under Zulja's orders. He goes on to explain Zulja's intentions and how he's been trying to get ahead in the race for power. Then, he reveals that Maria has been forced into cooperation because of something being held against her. He also explains that the pact between Basara and Mio was altered for a reason, making the situation even more dangerous for her. Realizing how serious things have become, Basara decides to take action. He challenges Yahiko, determined to get the exact location of Mio. At the same time, Mio confronts Maria, accusing her of betrayal, and Maria doesn't deny it but instead explains that Basara won't be able to reach them because of the barriers in place. Before Mio can react further, Maria uses magic to put her to sleep again. Hours later, Lars arrives outside Zulja's hidden base, bringing an unconscious Basara with him. In exchange, he demands Mio, setting the stage for what comes next. Zest is surprised when Lars makes his offer, especially since it comes out of nowhere. In response, Lars calmly brings up the fact that Zulja has already left for the royal castle after being summoned by the demon lord, Leohard. Hearing that, Zest quickly pieces things together and realizes that Lars was the one who tipped the demon lord off about Zulja in the first place. She calls him out on it immediately, and Lars doesn't deny it. Instead, he casually points out that he could have also reported their kidnapping of Mio, which would count as direct betrayal against the demon lord and his council. Zest asks if he's threatening them, but Lars brushes it off, saying he's just doing his job as Mio's assigned observer. He even tells her to focus on her own duty, which is protecting her master. Zest pretends to go along with it at first, acting like she's considering the deal, but in the next moment, she makes her move. She attacks suddenly, piercing straight through him, and following it up with another strike to make sure he's finished, knowing that it's better to eliminate the risk entirely than trust him. Meanwhile, inside the castle, Maria is struggling with guilt over everything she's done. She keeps thinking back to the moment Zulja revealed her mother's situation and forced her into cooperating. With no other choice, she agreed back then. But now the weight of that decision is catching up to her. Not long after, Zest arrives carrying Basara's unconscious body. She tells Maria that plans have changed and orders her to restrain him properly. She also instructs her to use her abilities to keep him under control, making it clear that Basara can't be allowed to interfere. When Basara finally wakes up, he immediately senses Mio nearby. However, he quickly realizes he's chained to a bed. Maria enters the room soon after, confirming that they're inside Zulja's mansion. She moves closer to him and begins trying to distract him, but Basara stops her by bringing up her mother. He offers to help her instead of fighting, trying to remind her that she doesn't have to do this alone. Maria shakes her head, insisting that Zulja is far too powerful for them to face directly, which was why she chose to betray them in the first place. Still, she declares that she'll go through with her role, even if it means forcing things. A massive magic circle appears above them, and a strange key materializes, unlocking something within her. As the seal breaks, Maria transforms into a stronger, bustier, hot mommy form. She explains that this ability was what allowed her to escape in the past when Mio's family was attacked. Now, she intends to use it fully. She activates her hypnotic ability, freeing Basara from his restraints and ordering him to follow her lead. Under its influence, Basara begins to act without resistance. But even as she carries out her plan, tears begin to form in her eyes, showing how conflicted she really is. That emotional crack is enough. Basara breaks free from the control, rejecting the situation entirely. He tells her clearly that he has no interest in playing along, and he wants to save her instead. Maria immediately backs away, shocked that her ability didn't work as expected. Basara summons his weapon and plants it into the ground, causing it to glow before disappearing. Maria points out that without it, he has no chance against her, but Basara admits he knows that. Still, he moves forward anyway, focused only on reaching her. Maria's aura darkens as she attacks him directly. He dodges her energy blasts with speed, but her physical strikes still land, sending him crashing into a wall. Even so, he doesn't stop. He keeps getting back up and moving toward her. Watching from the side, Zest is impressed but also concerned that Maria might push things too far. She prepares to step in, but before she can act, a sudden attack interrupts her, as Yuki has arrived. Zest quickly dodges and demands to know how Yuki got inside. That's when she realizes the barrier around the castle is gone, and that Basara must have removed it earlier using his ability. Yuki doesn't waste time and immediately engages Zest in battle. Zest claims that Yuki has no chance of winning in this territory, but the fight doesn't stay one-sided for long. A burst of flames suddenly enters the fight, and Mio has joined in despite still being restrained earlier. She follows up with lightning attacks, forcing Zest to keep moving. Yuki quickly frees Mio completely and explains the situation, with Maria's family being used against her. Realizing the truth, Mio's anger shifts. Instead of feeling betrayed, she now understands Maria's actions, and she focuses entirely on defeating Zest. Then, Zest retaliates with stronger magic, attempting to overwhelm them, but Mio and Yuki coordinate their attacks. Mio's flames create an opening, allowing Yuki to land a solid hit. Even then, Zest manages to avoid being taken down completely. She tries to break their teamwork by manipulating Mio, suggesting that Basara only cares about saving Maria. But Mio doesn't fall for it. She points out that Basara is simply trying to save everyone, and she even turns the argument back on Zest, highlighting her own situation of being unloved and not cherished. Meanwhile, Maria is reaching her limit after unleashing everything she has on Basara. Despite his injuries, he continues moving forward. No matter how many times she hits him, he refuses to stop. He finally reaches her and grabs her shoulder, telling her he won't give up on her. When she attempts one last attack, it fails to stop him. Instead, Basara pulls her into a firm embrace and apologizes for not realizing her situation sooner. Elsewhere, Mio and Yuki manage to bring Zest down and restrain her. When Mio asks if Yuki came alone, Yuki reveals that Basara was the one who told her to go. They decide to leave Zest secured for now and rush to find Basara, but before they can reach him, a powerful force stops them in place in the form of Zulja. Zest apologizes for failing, but Zulja dismisses it, saying it doesn't matter anymore. He launches an attack that knocks Yuki aside and injures Zest in the process. He then criticizes Zest harshly, accusing her of weakness and even hinting at jealousy. Just as he prepares to finish things, Basara steps in again. He uses his ability to erase the attack and charges straight at Zulja. Their clash is brief but intense, with Zulja acknowledging Basara's strength. However, Zulja quickly turns the situation around. He activates a spell that freezes Basara in place, stopping his movement completely. As Basara struggles, Zulja moves closer, preparing to peer into his mind and uncover everything hidden within him. Outside the castle, Lars calmly steps over the charred remains of the body double that was destroyed earlier, confirming his deception has worked perfectly. Without wasting time, he makes his way inside, knowing the real battle is still unfolding. Meanwhile, inside the castle, Maria stands in the very room where she restrained Basara earlier. Her mind is clouded with guilt and confusion as she replays his promise to save her mother and his insistence that she trust him. Despite everything she has done, he still chooses to believe in her, and that weighs heavily on her heart. Elsewhere, Basara struggles against the invisible force holding him in place, while Zulja mocks Jin, claiming that the once great hero has abandoned everything for a limp willy loser of a son. He goes further, boasting that he will claim both the dormant power within Mio and Basara's own abilities. Hearing this, Mio panics, but Basara refuses to quit. With a surge of willpower, he breaks free from the mental restraint and lunges forward, swinging his blade. Zulja easily evades the strike and continues provoking him, but this only fuels Basara's bloodlust even more. He attacks again and again, faster and more precise, recalling the lessons and encouragement his father has given him. Still, Zulja meets every strike effortlessly, blocking with his dark blade while commenting on Basara's improving speed. Despite the effort, the gap between them remains clear. Zulja eventually knocks Basara aside with overwhelming force, sending him crashing into the ground. He calls him a disgrace, then follows up with a powerful flame attack. Basara manages to counter it with his banishing shift, though the recoil forces him down to one knee. Refusing to give up, Basara charges again, but Zulja suddenly vanishes. Moments later, an unseen force grabs him from behind and slams him into the ground. Even then, Basara struggles to stand, which seems to amuse Zulja even more. This time, Basara closes his eyes, focusing entirely on sensing his opponent rather than seeing him. With that, he can feel Zulja's presence, but his blade cannot pierce the powerful barrier surrounding him. Zulja, pleased by the growing desperation, strikes him again and uses his magic to invade Basara's mind once more. Illusions begin to form, trying to trap him mentally and break his will. For a moment, Basara's resistance falters until Maria appears. Her arrival catches everyone off guard. Mio is especially shocked by Maria's transformed, more powerful Dami-Mami form. Zulja welcomes her with a grin, but Maria stands firm. She ignores his attempts to provoke her by calling her a succubus hoe and declares that she will end this, not for herself, but to stop Basara from risking everything. Zulja counters by bringing up her mother, forcing her to choose between loyalty and survival. Maria refuses both options, but Zulja reveals what appears to be proof that her mother has already been slaughtered. The image shatters her composure, and her transformation fades as she breaks down. That moment of despair triggers something else entirely. Mio's emotions explode, her aura surging uncontrollably as memories of her own loss resurface. The battlefield trembles under the weight of her power. Everyone feels it, except for Zulja, who quickly activates an anti-magic field to suppress it. He admits that provoking her has been intentional, believing it will awaken the power he seeks. However, Mio's energy resists his control, and when he approaches her, she pushes him back with a burst of raw power. Realizing the danger, Zulja is worried for the first time. Consumed by anger, Mio declares that she does not care about the consequences anymore. As she begins gathering energy for a devastating attack, Basara steps forward, barely standing. With Zest supporting him, he calls out to Mio, asking her to stop. She tells him to command her through their pact, but he refuses, as he doesn't want to force her, but instead, wants her to choose. He reminds her of his promise to protect her, not just from enemies, but from losing herself. Slowly, his words reach her. The overwhelming energy begins to fade as she regains control, choosing to trust him instead of her anger. Zulja takes advantage of the moment to escape, disappearing from the battlefield. Though the immediate threat is gone, tension remains. Then, unexpectedly, Maria's mother, Shella, appears. Maria is stunned, unable to understand how she has survived. Basara explains that Lars has helped orchestrate her escape as part of a deal. That revelation shifts everything, as what seemed like betrayal is actually part of a larger plan. Outside, Zulja encounters Lars, who reveals the truth that the death he witnessed was staged using a body double. Lars then explains his motive that Zulja has destroyed people who once cared for him, and now he intends to settle that score personally. Back inside, the moment of relief does not last long. The castle begins to shift violently. Zest explains that the entire structure is actually a massive creature, disguised and controlled by Zulja, and with his magic gone, the creature has awakened. The environment around them changes rapidly. Acidic fluids begin dripping from above, confirming they are inside the creature's body. Determined to act, Basara asks for the creature's core. Zest points them toward the center, and he reveals his plan to use the banishing shift to disrupt the creature's dimensional structure. Mio steps forward, initially hesitant, but ultimately decides to stand with him. Yuki joins as well, determined to protect him alongside Mio. Maria stays behind with Shella, ensuring her safety. With no time to waste, Zest opens a path deeper into the creature. Together, they run forward, heading toward the core, knowing that everything now depends on what they do next. They push deeper into the living labyrinth, only to be greeted by a swarm of slithery monsters that lunge at them from the shadows, but Basara, Mio, and Zest cut them down without breaking a sweat. Eventually, they reach what looks like a dead end, a sealed wall of flesh and hardened matter. Basara pauses, confused, but Zest quickly explains that the creature's transformation has warped the castle's structure. With no way back, they have no choice but to push forward. Zest steps up, unleashing a blast of dark energy that burns through the obstruction, opening a new pathway. They soon arrive at a staircase that twists unnaturally, and the steps themselves morph into grotesque monsters, lunging at them with distorted limbs. Zest explains that this is the creature's immune system reacting to their presence, trying to eliminate them before they can reach the core. Yuki immediately steps forward and draws her blade. She tells them to keep moving while she holds the monsters back. Basara doesn't want to leave her alone, but Yuki insists, saying that if he does not conserve his strength for the final move, everything will fall apart. Reluctantly, he trusts her, and as they move on, the sounds of battle echo behind them. Yuki fights with relentless precision, cutting through the waves of monsters with skill and speed, and despite being surrounded from all sides, she does not falter. The monsters come endlessly, but she holds her ground, buying the others the time they need. Meanwhile, Zest leads Basara and Mio through a narrow passage that spirals downward into the depths of the creature. Eventually, they reach a chamber unlike any they have seen before. Zest pauses, noting that she has never been there, but she can sense that it is Zulja's private domain. Mio steps inside first, and one of the figures suddenly moves, lunging forward and grabbing her. Basara rushes in to help, but he is intercepted by another identical creature that slams him to the ground. Just as things begin to spiral, Zest steps in and obliterates both attackers with a powerful surge of magic. Then, the room comes alive as dozens more of those humanoid demons awaken, surrounding them. Zest immediately realizes that they need to eliminate all of them at once, or risk being overwhelmed. The three of them unleash everything they have, but the battle intensifies when the creatures begin using magic themselves, mimicking real combat techniques. Still, Basara and Zest adapt quickly, cutting them down one after another. As the last of them falls, Zest looks at the remains and realizes that these are prototypes, failed experiments modeled after her own existence. Without dwelling on it, she blasts open the ground beneath them, revealing a path to the core. They drop into the final chamber, where the creature's core pulses with energy, protected by massive monsters. Mio and Zest try to attack immediately, but are thrown back as the Guardians retaliate with brutal force. With options running out, Zest steps forward and makes her decision. She will draw the creature's attention while Basara destroys the core. When he tries to argue, she stops him and reveals the truth that she is nothing more than a prototype, created and discarded, with Zulja never valuing her existence. Mio refuses to accept that, arguing that Zest clearly has a heart, but Basara understands what she is trying to do, so he accepts her plan. Then, Zest unleashes multiple magic circles, bombarding the Guardians and drawing their attacks. The chamber shakes violently as Basara steps forward, focusing everything into one final strike. With a powerful activation of Banishing Shift, he erases the core. The creature lets out a deafening roar as energy explodes outward, the shockwave tearing through the surrounding landscape, even destroying a distant mountain before the beast finally collapses. Outside, Lars watches the aftermath with a smirk before turning his attention to Zulja. Without hesitation, he subdues the weakened demon. Later, Zest regains consciousness, and she finds herself alive and free. Shella approaches her, asking what she intends to do now. Zest quietly admits that her fate is no longer her own, and it rests in Basara's hands. But as she looks around, she realizes he is not there. Elsewhere, Lars deals with Zulja, brutally wearing him down, and he reveals that someone has requested to witness the end. Zulja assumes it will be someone he can manipulate, but instead, Basara arrives and apologizes for being late. Lars explains the final condition of their agreement, which is that Basara will confirm Zulja's death, and in return, Lars will support him moving forward. Zulja begs desperately, but Basara does not waver, and Lars ends it swiftly. With Zulja gone, Basara is left questioning whether everything has truly been the right path. As he stands there, the bandage on his finger, placed earlier by Chisato, falls away, marking the end of the battle. When he returns home, things are quieter. Yuki informs him that Maria and Shella are resting, while Mio is still awake. Zest suggests eliminating remaining threats, but Basara rejects that idea, choosing a different path for her. Then, he goes to check on Mio, who is shaken, so he stays with her. They talk about everything, starting from Zest, about what will come next, and about the fragile peace they have regained. But Basara's worry lingers, and when he asks if Zulja has harmed her, she reassures him, yet his emotions still surge. For a moment, he loses control, overwhelmed by fear of losing her, and goes full on Johnny Sins on her plots and creamers. When he comes to his senses, he immediately pulls back and apologizes. However, Mio does not respond the way he expects. Instead, she asks him to stay for just a little longer. Before the moment can settle, Yuki enters the room and joins in the fun. Then, Zest joins in as well, all the while Maria watches from the outside. But Basara pulls Maria into the room, begging her to do something, but with the emotions running high, Maria makes her own bold move, declaring her feelings openly. That night, the moderate faction demons arrive to retrieve Maria and Zest. As they leave, the group is once again forced to part ways. From a distance, Lars watches silently, and far away, in the Demon Lord's palace, a new storm is already brewing. When Leohart returns, he finds his guards defeated, and Jin is sitting on his throne, declaring that he is there to repay what Leohart did to his children. If you watch this anime recap until the end, comment down below Hot Demon Sisters, and if you love anime recaps like this, watch this video.